Trump posted this obviously AI photo of him standing on a mountaintop next to the Canadian flag, looking off into the distance with the caption, "Oh, Canada."
You will be thrilled to know that Joy Reid has commented on Trump's Trudeau jibe about Canada becoming a 51st state. Here is Joy Reid, I would say, in a state of some agitation, which I know you're going to enjoy.
To the U.S. and to our local gangster, Donald Trump.
That's just going to be stated as a fact now. He's a gangster.
He's not even president yet, and he's already spending his time sitting in his golden palace, Mar-a-Lago.
Unlike Gavin Newsom, who just made a joke about being chauffeur-driven everywhere, and who I love. Unlike Joe Biden, who just pardoned his own son from a set of crimes that, while a senator, he said should condemn you to at least 5 years in prison, whoever you are. So I'm only willing to look at hypocrisy in one direction, when hypocrisy, like evil, is a trait that can be exhibited in anybody unless they are tethered to spiritual principles. Because human beings are all fallen and broken, but can be forgiven if they form divine and sublime relationships. But I'm not going to report on that, because that would wake you the hell up and make you dangerous to control.
Muscling other countries like he's Tony Soprano with a social media site.
In the writer's room, they were very pleased in that moment. Yeah, Tony Soprano with a social media site. Yeah, that's a gangster, isn't it? Tony Soprano. That's a reference that'll get the giggles.
Doing things like, reportedly, debating whether or not to invade Mexico, threatening BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, with 100% tariffs if they don't commit to trading in dollars and not their own currencies.
How dare you threaten BRICS countries? Now, of course, BRICS countries are free to set up a alternative currency and dump the petrodollar. And with the same principle, try to memorize that word, of freedom, the United States of America are free to say we would impose tariffs in response. What you're more likely to get from a sort of a Biden hegemony and heritage government is compliance with those nations and deals struck that are generally beneficial to elite and not beneficial to the nation as a whole. I'm not sure how Trump will govern this time. My best guess is that it will be a bit like last time he was president, with a little bit of Tulsi Gabbard and a little bit of Bobby Kennedy and a bit of Vivek and Elon Musk thrown into the mix, and we'll all just have to wait and see. What I'm pretty certain about is the reason you're seeing the likes of Cenk Uygur, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, and various other left-wing figures turning away from the dogmas and doctrine of the left is people are starting to awaken to the clear fact that those institutions are undemocratic, and beyond undemocratic, anti-democratic, and people are awakening to the fact that there need to be real and significant changes, and people are willing to try, for example, nationalist populism, which I pray need not be racist or divisive, particularly if it were, as often the leftist media fear, it were Christian. Because what does it say in Christian doctrine again and again? We are one family. Love one another as I have loved you. Love one another to the point where you're willing to sacrifice. Love one another so much that materialism and pleasure seem empty and hollow to you. Is that the message of your state? Is that the message of your media? Or do they want you gridlocked in the neurological mesh of pleasure and stimulation? Let me know in the comments and chat. Do you think the legacy media want you free? Do you think the state wants you free? Do you think the globalists want you free? Or do they want you tethered and bound, a slave again to their material means? Let me know in the comments chat, baby.
Demanding Hamas release all hostages being held in Gaza before his inauguration, or there will be, quote, all hell to pay in the Middle East. Even reportedly threatening Canada. According to Fox, when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago this weekend to try to talk Trump out of his 25% tariff threat, Trump apparently suggested that if Canada can't handle the tariffs that would violate the NAFTA upgrade Trump himself signed into law, the USMCA, they should just become the 51st state.
Amazing. Like when you see Trudeau in blackface or out of it, advocating for calling like ordinary working class Canadians Nazis because they're protesting against centralized measures that stop them earning a livelihood, as happened in the pandemic. You realise that what these kind of lotioned gangsters require is an old school gangster to say, if you want to play these games, this is how these games go. Now, I don't find myself in a position for advocating for either side of that dynamic because as a Christian, beyond and above all else, I'm trying to overcome my own tendencies for domination or for sin. But if the world game and the world stage is going to be played this way, then players like Donald Trump are going to emerge. Like I told you yesterday, Donald Trump is the American mystic that the American imagination created. Indeed, that's why there are memes and images of strongman presidents, whether it's in that weird card game that you lot know, or whether in various episodes of The Simpsons, that preempt Trump as president, because American culture was crying out for this kind of figure. And whilst it passed through the cultural passageway and corridors of Clinton, who's a kind of proto-Trump, wasn't he? But a proto-Trump owned not by populism, but by the institutions that call themselves democracy, but don't mean by democracy electoral voting and the mandate and direction of the masses, but instead mean the preservation of institutions that serve corporate and global power. Then they recognize, no, we need a black one now because, you know, the times are changing, and it will help people to overlook the corruption if we have an African American as president. Then we all saw how that went, the Occupy movement, the 2008 financial collapse, the Syrian droning, all of that stuff, all of that betrayal. Then they try to reboot it again. Let's have a woman one. Do you want a woman one? Listen, I don't care who's bombing Syrian children. I don't care if they've got a vagina or penises emerging from their shoulders like epaulets. What I believe in is peace and freedom and personal awakening. And what you have created is an American mystic and an American prophet. And of course he flies around in a plane with his own name on it and has phallic towers adorned with the legend Trump, as if he's slapping down his own hand in victory in the gambling card casino game of American politics. Of course he lives on Coca-Cola and McDonald's. What else would an American mystic meet? If you want to worship the culture instead of worshipping God, then the culture, your God, will create its own prophets. Now, I'm not making a moral judgment of Donald Trump. Who am I to make a moral judgment of anyone? But what is plain is you put that guy in the game and suddenly global authoritarianism has to start making some different moves. Justin Trudeau gingerly turning up. Now listen, would you consider maybe dropping that 25% tariff? Hey, why don't you go talk to your dad over in Cuba? Most coffee out there is basically the liquid equivalent of a participation trophy. Bland, mass-produced, utterly forgetful. But peaberry beans, they're not here to play nice. You get yourself that peaberry, you'll know you've been caffeinated. It's 1775, baby. These rare little rebels make up less than 10% of the entire coffee harvest. Instead of sticking to the crowd, they grow solo, resulting in a denser, more intense bean that doesn't just follow the herd. These beans are grown at high altitudes and are hand-picked at their peak, because if you're going to do something, do it right, yeah? Do them beans right. Thanks to their unique solo acts, pea berries deliver richer flavors, a smoother finish, and a touch more caffeine to keep you sharp and focused, like the universe intended. This isn't your corporate coffee sludge. This is for those who see through the nonsense and demand a cup that's as real as it gets. Why settle for anything less than the sweetest pea berries, those rarest among beans? So if you're tired of sipping on mediocrity, go to 1775coffee.com. Use my special code BRAND to get 15% off. Don't just wake up properly to 1775. Revolutionary coffee in the revolution against mediocrity.
Just become the 51st state instead and allow Trudeau to be reduced to governor of the state of Canada, which caused the Prime Minister and others to laugh nervously. And while some are writing that off as just a joke, just a few hours ago, Trump posted this obviously AI photo of him standing on a mountaintop.
It is obviously AI. He hasn't gone up to a mountain in Canada himself, that lazy son of a bitch. Go to your own mountain and stand by a maple leaf flag. They're more concerned about an off-the-cuff comment about Canada becoming a 51st state than the fact that the Biden administration has authorized the use of long-range missiles inside of Russia. That's the warped mindset here. In fact, when on Rumble people stream about the escalation of this potentially apocalyptic war, Rumble are chastised and castigated for misinformation. Do you see the warped mindset of these people? Let me know in the comments and chat.
Next to the Canadian flag, looking off into the distance with the caption, "Oh, Canada."
How dare you look off into the distance? Focus on the tip of your own nose so you look all bug-eyed.
And for the record, he appears to be looking at the Matterhorn, which is on the border between Switzerland and Italy. not Canada.
That's not actually even in Canada. So it shows how much you know. So your joke meme is actually inaccurate, and people reporting on the fact that long-range missiles are being used inside Russia is misinformation. Thanks for watching.
Oh, and let's not forget, this is the same Donald Trump who at one point seriously wanted to buy the nation of Greenland.
They're doubling down on the snooty, haughty, supercilious, condescending manner of the media that's led us to stop trusting them. They think that's what people want. You know what people want? They want to be spoken down to like they're idiots. They want their information pre-chewed and spat in their mouths like they're baby birds rather than adults. That Matterhorn is nowhere near Canada, right? And if you make a sort of off-the-cuff remarks about the potential heritage of our man Trudeau and his peculiar and very particular Castro nose, then that's considered like, how could you say that? But their version of a joke is, that's the Matterhorn. The Matterhorn's not there. And there's a lot of people that think Fidel Castro actually is Justin Trudeau's dad. You've seen the pictures of his mum dancing with Fidel, right?
Even possibly trade it for Puerto Rico.
How dare you try to treat reality like it's a game of Risk? You do not swap Puerto Rico for Greenland. It isn't even green, that lying bastard.
I wonder what this guy has against Puerto Rico. I'll just keep noodling on it. I'm sure I'll figure it out.
Why is he always on about Puerto Rico? Firstly, a comedian at one of his rallies, who he's never really met, apparently, said a joke about Puerto Rico. And now there's this other unverified, mad, crazy story about swapping Greenland for Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico. Yes, Puerto Rico, but also long-range missiles in Russia. Let me know in the comments and chat what you think might be more important and what might affect your respiratory system more directly and immediately.
Bottom line. This is how Trump operates on the world stage. He acts like he's everybody's boss, like he's the king of the world, which is bad news for basically everybody, unless your name is Vladimir Putin, the boss to Trump's underboss.
That guy needs a long-range missile right up his Matterhorn. And thank God that Joe Biden was doddering enough and senile enough to offer exactly that.
The question now is, will any other leader stand up to him? And who? Who becomes the leader of the free world when Donald Trump ends Pax Americana as we know it?
Now, Pax Americana's gone. Who are you going to have? Keir Starmer, two-tier Keir, Starmageddon, Trudeau, and that lovely hair, and that Castro daddy? Who do you want to be? How about you don't have a leader of the free world? How about you have elected governments that run their nation in the spirit of service as nominated and directed by the population of that country? Maybe Singapore is no one's business but Singaporeans, unless Singapore start doing some crazy stuff that affects everyone. Maybe South Korea is no one's business except South Korea's. Maybe Greenland and Puerto Rico should be running themselves. Maybe America shouldn't be on behalf not of their population but on behalf of corporate interests, be plundering the world under the auspices and guises of NATO so that Ukrainian resources can be redirected and so BlackRock can set up the first digital totalitarian state across Ukraine. How about that, Joy? Noodle on that, baby!
We are seeing a global trend of the far right surging.
Why would that be? I mean, how also could you be a journalist and not ask immediately the question, why? The far right is surging. Why? Even if you accept the terms, even if you don't want to interrogate terms like far right that fall away in this new emergent space, even if you just want to go, okay, call it far right, fine, I'm not going to be insulted, it's far right. Why do you think that would happen? What do you think would be an understandable reason why people would want to revert to nationalism? What do you think are reasons that people might look for bonds or ties on a national level? Do you think, for example, that there would be a right-wing surge if neocon, apparently left liberal governments, like the Democrats under Biden or the Labour Party under Starmer or whatever it is that Trudeau's doing in Canada, if those parties were working and people were happy and they were content, do you think they'd go, just for a laugh, do you know who we should look at the views of again? Hitler. I liked his moustache and I liked his armbands, even though the economy's working well and the spiritual life of my nation seems to be in good hands. For no reason at all, I'm going to go far right. So immediately you begin to inquire, what you see is, yeah, there must be a reason for that. There must be a reason that in India, people have become more nationalistic. In the UK, people are becoming more nationalistic. In France, Canada, the United States. Why is that? Now, the reason you're not offered that question by mainstream media is because the answer is obvious. Globalism, centralized authority that facilitates advantages to corporate interests that themselves do not recognize or see nation and appear to use as one of their weapons mass migration to destabilize domestic populations and to ensure that the proletariat, to use a Marxist term, cannot compete in the labour market, to use a Marxist argument. So even if you look through this using the lens and rubric of Marxism, the questions that gape open like a wound on the knees of Hunter Biden after a long night of crawling around are these. Why? Why are people so unhappy? Why are people looking for alternatives? You don't have to look very far because there's a censorship problem all over the world. People are being censored in Ireland. People are being censored in Germany. People are being censored in the United Kingdom and the United States. There's an agricultural crisis all over the world. Sri Lanka, India, the Netherlands. Why would this be happening? Almost as if there is an emanating echo moving out from some center somewhere. Now, because you have platforms like Rumble and X, you are able to form network understanding of these issues that was impossible when you only had centralized media. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. The significance of independent media is our ability to have an ongoing conversation where the truth becomes visible. Now, in that process of discourse to understand truth, of course, crazy things get said, particularly if you place media in the hands of people like me, who by our nature are somewhat chaotic but generally authentic, or place media in the generalized hands of various people. I'm watching the comments all the time that we're doing this, so I'm seeing some people are like, yeah, that's true, no, I disagree with you, you're making mistakes there. And when I see that, I don't think these people are idiots, they should be censored, they're fools. I think, oh yeah, maybe it's me that doesn't understand. Now, the New York Times doesn't have to have those conversations with itself. All it has to do is serve its advertisers and serve whatever interests ultimately control it. And we now know, since the X-Files, or Twitter files, the X-Files revealed a lot of other stuff about spaceships mostly. What we learned from the Twitter files is the deep state are embedded within social media platforms because they've recognized that they need to control the narrative on social media in the way that they've always controlled it within legacy media. But this is a great awakening. And the reason that I believe you need a connection to God is, without a connection to God, you will become vulnerable to human power. You will become vulnerable to the dogmas and doctrines that are devised by people that want you trapped in selfishness and foolishness. I am certainly not immune to that. I can be dragged around by the nose and sometimes by other protuberances by pleasure all day long, led like a fool, like a lamb to the slaughter. But when I awaken and surrender, and I can only awaken in this moment we're living in right now, I am no longer their quarry. I am no longer their victim. I am no longer their fool. But those that advocate for more centralized power, more censorship, more control, whether they know it or not, Joy Reid, are doing the work of dark forces in high places.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.